I seen, but when she came, she was a force.
She was one of the top guards in Memphis, which, got her a scholarship. And something tells me, turn around. So I go back to her room, and this time I turn on the lights.
The blood was along the wall, there was blood on the floor, on the bed.
Oh, Gary! Oh, Gary!
Hello, number one.
Peter!
You're really just left with a lot of questions. What went down here?
Constitution to ensure that you don't get trapped.
Power breeds greed, and it corrupts.
And when they cross the line, believe me, the feds are gonna show up at your door like the boogeyman.
They took our votes.
I am a maverick.
Then lined their pockets.
You stash cash in your freezer?
He went to Jamaica and Hawaii, and both of those were paid for by a city contractor.
There's no way in the world that the 7 or 8 televisions that he bought were political in nature.
He's one of those cats that refused to believe that fat meat was greasy.
This is the story of 3 politicians who were elected to lead, but were consumed by greed. Jesse Jackson Jr., Ray Nagin, and William Jefferson on Celebrity Crime Files.
The first statutes ever written on public corruption was in the first Congress in 1789. We're not talking about a crime that is new to this nation or new to the world. It's been around for a lifetime.
That is the nature of our political system. Money drives it. Money owns it. Money changes it. So now imagine you're the politician and all it is money, 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 money. Well, heck, I'm sitting here taking care of other people. People not taking care of me, I need to get me a piece of the action. And that's when they run afoul of the law.
Political corruption on any level is damaging, but it's compounded when the offender is black.
As a black person, it's not just your own reputation that's on the line when you become an elected official. You're representing a constituency that historically has already faced its own problems of being given a fair deal.
We don't have as many, black elected officials as everybody else does. We just don't have as many people. So we need the ones that we do have to at least count.
When you put your hand in the cookie jar, it reflects not just on you, it reflects on the entire community.
Jesse Jackson Jr., son of civil rights activist Reverend Jesse Jackson, served as congressional representative for Illinois' 2nd District, including the South Side of Chicago, for 17 years. And while by all accounts Jackson worked hard for his district, he was brought down by scandal in 2012.
The essence of the allegations against Jesse were that for an extended period of time, he, and actually his wife, converted campaign contributions that had been given to his campaign to his personal use.
It was a stinging fall from grace for the son of one of Black America's best-known political figures.
It's really reflective of his willingness to trade on the name of his father, which is, again, a further abuse of trust.
By the time Jesse Jackson was 2 years old, his father was already a confidant of Martin Luther King. When Jesse Jr. was a teen, his dad was arguably the most influential civil rights advocate in the country and a candidate for president.
Keep your eyes on the prize.
To be the namesake of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. carries a huge burden, but it also carries great reward.
Jesse was not always the perfect child. Diagnosed as hyperactive, he was sent to Lamont's military academy, where he was often paddled for disciplinary reasons and suspended twice.
Jesse Louis Jackson.
But by the time his father ran for president in 1984, Jesse Jr. had shaped up and often joined Reverend Jackson on the campaign trail.
I have the pleasure of introducing my parents, Reverend and Mrs. Jesse Jackson.
In 1988, Reverend Jackson secured a position for Jesse in the Democratic National Committee. Soon after, Jesse Jr. was appointed the secretary of the DNC's Black Caucus, and in the early 90s was the national field director of the Rainbow Coalition. But it was difficult to escape his father's long shadow.
There was a sentiment out there that the fundamental problem was Jesse Jr. felt entitled. He had led a sort of pampered life based upon his father's accomplishments. And, you know, Jesse is an ambitious, aggressive person who's accomplished a great deal all on his own.
Jackson earned bachelor's, master's, and law degrees, and married a grad school classmate, Sandy Stevens. In 1995, at age 30,
Are you ready to elect Jesse Jackson Jr.?
he ran for office as congressman for the 2nd District of Illinois.
When he first ran for Congress, he indicated that he was going to fight for the best interests of the African-American community.
Thank you for taking the time to go vote. Thank you so much.
Out of the interests of a district that was basically 55–60% African-American.
Congratulations, you're a member of Congress.
He never missed a vote, and that showed some diligence and some care. He was a member who was vitally concerned with his district. He produced for his locals, and they appreciated that.
That's why it was so strange when he simply stopped showing up for work.
Jesse Jackson Jr. disappeared from public life for quite some time, and he was aware that prosecutors were getting closer, and he knew what he'd been spending the money on, and he knew the jig is up.
Between 1995 and 2012, Illinois Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. ran for re-election 10 times and won with overwhelming majorities, as high as 94% in 1996. For each campaign, he solicited and received large sums of money.
Running for office is big business. Television ads, radio ads, billboards, online.
Politicians on the left and on the right raise money and spend more time raising money today than they ever have collectively than in U.S. history.
But Jesse had a secret. Not all of the money he raised was reaching its intended target.
Jesse began his career as a congressman as a young man without many financial resources, and he clearly wanted to lead a life that he could not afford with the congressional salary.
What he did was use the campaign funds from donors for personal use.
Jackson had a co-conspirator. His campaign treasurer was his wife, Sandy.
When she was the one doing the campaign finance reports, really other staffers are not likely to question the congressman's wife. I would say that's a pretty bad thing to do, to have your spouse as your campaign treasurer.
And while these improprieties may have been going on for more than a decade, they were a closely guarded secret. They may have never come to light if Barack Obama had not been elected president. When Obama was elected in 2008, the Illinois Senate seat he'd held was left vacant. The choice for Obama's replacement was left up to Governor Rod Blagojevich, and Jesse Jackson Jr. wanted that seat badly.
When the Chicago U.S. Attorney took a look to see if Jesse was seeking to buy the Senate seat from Blagojevich, and the allegation out there was that Jesse, through a business intermediary, offered Blagojevich an enormous amount of money for the seat.
The intermediary was a doctor and political fundraiser named Raghuvir Nayak. Nayak and an associate met with the governor in 2008.
They went to Blagojevich and said, make Jesse Jr. the senator, and you'll be well compensated.
I've got this thing, and it's golden, and I'm just not giving it up for nothing.
Jackson and Blagojevich met shortly thereafter. 2 days after that meeting, Blagojevich was arrested and charged with trying to sell the Senate seat for profit. Investigators asked Dr. Nyack about his involvement, and Nyack alleged that he had offered Blagojevich anywhere from $1 million to $6 million in order to buy Jackson the Senate seat. Jackson maintained his innocence.
We were able to persuade the U.S. Attorney in Chicago that the allegation was bogus, and Jesse, it turned out, was an extremely effective witness at the trial.
On the witness stand, Jackson vehemently stated his opposition to pay-to-play politics.
The courtroom was packed. This is high drama, one of the biggest trials in the last 20 years. Jesse took the witness stand and annihilated Blagojevich with style and panache and grace.
Blagojevich would eventually be sentenced to 14 years in prison for his crimes. Jesse Jackson Jr.'s troubles were only beginning.
Here's what happens when a federal investigation is launched. That thing can go anywhere. When they begin to snake through and comb through your entire life, the investigation can lead them to somewhere that isn't even remotely close to where they started.
There were lingering FEC and House Ethics Committee investigations. Somewhere along the line, a staffer went to the FBI and made allegations that Jesse had converted campaign contributions to his own use.
As the investigation dug deeper, people in Jackson's camp began to notice a marked change in his behavior.
I saw a depressed Jesse, a Jesse who had difficulty getting out of bed, functioning, dealing with the real world. And I also saw a manic Jesse, a Jesse who acted in spurts, was hard to contain.
But what it probably also meant was he was aware that prosecutors were getting closer, and he knew what he'd been spending the money on, and he knew he was going to get caught. And that could indeed depress someone when they realize the jig is up.
Jesse, who prided himself on never missing a congressional vote, stopped showing up to work. Jackson was eventually diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
People with bipolar disorder have periods when their behavior changes and their mood becomes elevated. They tend to be more impulsive during those periods, and also to engage in more sort of goal-directed activities, anything ranging from cleaning the house to spending a lot of money.
Under Clause 5D.
On November 21st, 2012, Jesse Jackson Jr. retired from Congress, citing mental and physical health problems. But the investigation continued, and when the details were revealed, they were scandalous.
He used campaign money for things like Michael Jackson paraphernalia, a Rolex watch, and some expensive clothing. Jesse Jackson Jr. hid all of those expenses on his campaign finance reports.
Jackson's lawyer used his bipolar disorder in his defense.
He suffers from a very, very serious illness. I think it played directly into the crimes charged, in that there were purchases that were sort of nutty. He would go to buy 7 or 8 televisions. Why would you do that? But you're on some high, and you're acting in a way that's not consistent with objective needs. What it really boiled down to is there was compulsive behavior that he couldn't control, but there was also a desire to have a lifestyle that he couldn't attain by the salary he was making.
I am not a doctor, so I can't diagnose him, but I can diagnose politics. Some politicians think that they can get away with anything because they've never gotten caught.
On February 20th, 2013, Jackson pled guilty to fraud in connection with his misuse of $750,000 of campaign funds.
Jesse decided to plead guilty for 3 reasons. Jesse truly wanted to come to terms with his wrongdoing. 2, Jesse wanted to protect everybody that he had involved in this scheme for years to convert the campaign contributions. And 3, Jesse's a smart guy. He's a lawyer. He knew what he'd face in court. The evidence against him was overwhelming.
In August 2013, Jesse Jackson Jr. was convicted and sentenced to 30 months in federal prison. His wife, Sandy, got 12 months.
Today I manned up and tried to accept responsibility for the errors of my ways, and I still believe in the resurrection.
The judge allowed the couple to stagger their prison time because of their 2 young children.
Illinois and Chicago was the capital of corruption. We operate off the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not get caught. And what happened is Jesse Jr. got caught.
He wanted a life he couldn't attain in superficial ways, and he converted campaign contributions to get there.
That's something that is really at the height of the do not do list when you enter politics.
I think there's a lot of denial that goes on. There's a lot of rationalization, and people persuade themselves that what they're doing is okay, or if not okay, then it's without consequences for the voters. With power comes a whole lot of temptation. And it takes people of really strong moral character to resist that temptation that comes along the way.
Resisting temptation is hard, but giving in is easy, especially in New Orleans, the Big Easy, where politics and corruption go hand in hand.
There was an awful lot of suffering in New Orleans, and Ray Nagin was profiting off of it.
New Orleans, the Big Easy, where the gumbo is hot, the beignets are sweet, and crooked politicians are a dime a dozen.
Louisiana has been a corrupt state. New Orleans in particular has been a corrupt place. They've done very little to do anything to foster kind of anybody being upright. But if you're going to be corrupt, be good at it.
This is a city that has a very weak economy, and the tendency is for talented individuals to flow towards politics. People get involved in politics because that way you can skim off public contracts. And that's kind of how the game was played.
Between 1997 and 2006, there were 332 federal corruption convictions in Louisiana. And it's nothing new. Some of the nation's most famously corrupt politicians, like Huey Long and Edwin Edwards, have operated in the Pelican State.
All of that has led to a history and a culture of graft and corruption, and one that has been put up with by voters to a remarkable degree until very recently. I think that has profoundly changed.
In 2002, Ray Nagin defeated Richard Pennington to become the 60th mayor of New Orleans, earning 59% of the popular vote.
Part of the reason he got elected was because people were fed up with corruption.
Before he ran for office, Nagin was an executive at Cox Communication, the city's cable TV franchise.
He had a very high-paying job in the private sector, was making around $400,000 a year, and took a pretty significant pay cut to become mayor, which is something he often reminded people of.
He really ran as a reformer. He was a businessman. He said he was going to enter public office because he cared so much, because he wanted to reform the ethics of the city and to make things different.
Throughout Nagin's first term, New Orleans thrived. He launched an anti-corruption campaign that led to the arrest of several city officials. The job rate went up, and film production brought in $400 million. Then, in August 2005, Hurricane Katrina unleashed her fury on the Gulf Coast and New Orleans. An estimated 1,500 people died. 80% of the city was flooded, and thousands of people were displaced. After the storm, Ray Nagin was front and center on the national news.
It's the conditions.
The immediate performance, the hysteria, seemed entirely appropriate to us at the time because we were hysterical and trying to somehow get the attention of the federal government in those first few days when people were dying of thirst, sitting on their rooftop waiting for somebody to come, and 3 or 4 days later they had not come. We were all screaming and cursing there with him.
And what was later labeled his Chocolate City speech.
This city will be chocolate at the end of the day.
Nagin also came out against proposed plans to rezone and rebuild the city.
African Americans had been disproportionately impacted by the displacement. And this was a real issue for them that, oh, we're not going to be able to return. They're going to turn our neighborhoods into green spaces. And so Nagin tapped into that fear.
Nagin rode the Chocolate City sentiment back into office when he ran for re-election. Nagin's opponent was Mitch Landrieu. the white lieutenant governor of Louisiana.
I do think that Nagin was attempting to play the race card, really trying to play upon the racialized fears of those who had escaped from New Orleans and some of the undertones of the redevelopment plans that had gone on in Hurricane Katrina. He was really trying to galvanize black voters against his opponent.
In a hotly contested runoff, Nagin beat Landreau by just 4% of the vote.
It's time for One New Orleans today.
The first order of business for the newly re-elected mayor was to help rebuild the city.
There were tons and tons of government contracts to dole out in the wake of Hurricane Katrina.
The mayor's king in the city, and that he has lots of control over professional service contracts. Those do not have to go to the lowest bidder. Those go to the contractor that the mayor decides on. That's what gives the mayor lots of authority in this city.
Rumors began to develop surrounding the mayor and his authority.
Local journalists did a lot of investigations of some of these relationships, uncovered these stories, and then law enforcement picked it up after the fact.
In one instance, Nagin apparently tried to shake down Home Depot. Nagin and his sons had started a granite company, and Nagin reportedly told Home Depot that he wanted an exclusive contract in exchange for preferential treatment in New Orleans.
There was extensive discussion over emails and phone calls that the mayor made trying to get Home Depot to hire his son's granite company to install countertops. And it was very clear that Home Depot thought that it was not okay for them as a company that needed permits from the city to funnel business to a company owned by the mayor and his sons.
It was kind of the typical old New Orleans style politics. It was easy money, taking the bribes, and that's where they kind of go down this slippery slope.
Journalists also began to uncover trips that Mayor Nagin was taking with his family. Trips to Jamaica and to Hawaii. Trips that he wasn't paying for himself.
The rules, of course, are a little bit different in the public sector and the private sector. And I think things that he was accustomed to doing as the head of Cox Communications were not okay as mayor. Taking trips that were paid for by other businessmen who were doing business with the city. I don't think he thought that was really a problem, because if he had done those things as the head of Cox, it wouldn't have been a problem.
It was a problem, a big problem, that would only get worse when the federal government caught wind of what Mayor Nagin was up to.
It's a real blurry line between a political contribution and not bribe.
In 2006, New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin was re-elected in the wake of Hurricane Katrina.
I am a maverick.
The former Cox Communication executive was seen as a savior, an advocate for the African-American population that was hardest hit by the storm. But Ray Nagin was also looking out for number one.
He came in saying, I'm going to run the city like a business. We're going to finally get New Orleans running like it should. And for a while, he did.
What's up, young man? How you doing?
But it didn't take long, it turns out, for him to start taking advantage of his office for his own personal gain.
Nagin and his family had taken a number of trips with his chief technology officer, Greg Mefford. In 2009, when the media learned of the trips, they questioned who had paid for the vacations.
This is where the stonewalling begins. Well, I don't really know who paid for it. And so they begin investigating.
It was later revealed that the trips were paid for, at least in part, by a city vendor and contributor to Nagin's 2006 re-election campaign. Mark St. Pierre, who owned a company called Net Methods, was the city's primary technology contractor.
Mark St. Pierre had flown Ray Nagin to Hawaii and to Jamaica and some other places, paying for his lawn care and some other things at his house. He was paying for cell phones for the Nagin kids.
Nagin claimed ignorance. He said he thought Greg Mefford was footing the bill, not St. Pierre.
He maintains that he didn't know who was paying for it. Now, that's kind of a hard pill to swallow because they were expensive vacations.
It wasn't a question of the people with the best bid coming in who would do the best work getting the contract to rebuild New Orleans. It was instead the people who were lining Ray Nagin's pockets. There was an awful lot of suffering in New Orleans, and Ray Nagin was profiting off of it.
In 2009, federal authorities charged Greg Mefford and Mark St. Pierre with corruption for their kickback scheme. Records showed that between 2004 and 2006, Mefford steered millions of dollars worth of contracts to St. Pierre through City Hall and received $860,000 in return. Nagin testified at trial and was questioned about his suspicious vacations.
When he was being deposed, when he was asked who paid for it, he says, well, I don't know. That raised concerns among them because if he had been honest, he would have said, this person paid for it. The fact that he lied set off red flags, and that's when they began to look more closely at him and what was going on in City Hall.
Mefford ultimately pled guilty and is awaiting sentencing. St. Pierre got 17.5 years. Nagin finished out his second term and left office on May 3rd, 2010. Less than 2 years later, the feds launched a grand jury investigation. In January of 2013, Nagin was indicted on 21 counts of corruption, including conspiracy, bribery, and money laundering. He was charged with taking more than $500,000 in payouts from businessmen in exchange for millions of dollars worth of city contracts. The mayor pled not guilty to all charges.
He was offered 2 to 5 years prior to the trial, but felt that all I really need to do is just talk to these people, and then they'll understand, and then they'll beat the conviction.
He didn't think he did anything wrong. That all these people who were testifying against me, most of them were crooks who had cut their own deals. And if I just point out to the jury that these people are saying this because they're trying to reduce their own time in prison and so forth, that everything will be okay.
It was the height of arrogance to believe that everybody would tell on you and that you would find a way out of it. He's one of those cats that refused to believe that fat meat was greasy.
Ray Nagin gambled and lost. On February 12, 2014, Nagin was found guilty on 20 of the 21 charges against him.
I think black voters in New Orleans believed Ray Nagin when he said that he had the connections with the White House to get the city back on its feet following Katrina. And so they voted for him in the second election. I think, however, they were gravely disappointed that not only did he not have the connections, but then what connections he did have, he sought to use for his own personal gain.
I think in his case, it's even more depressing and hurtful to New Orleans because you were looked upon as a savior. And so to see him go down, that is very painful. The people who said, man, we trusted you to rebuild this city.
In spite of his history of shady business, Ray Nagin was the first mayor of New Orleans to ever be charged with criminal corruption. But in Louisiana, the stain of corruption extends well past New Orleans.
Once you've got $90,000 in your freezer, it's pretty hard to explain it away. He didn't have a lot of money, but he had a Harvard Law School education. He could have taken a much more lucrative job, but he didn't.
In 1979, Jefferson was elected to the Louisiana Senate and served there for 11 years. In 1990, he became the first black congressman from Louisiana since the Reconstruction era. But making history apparently wasn't enough.
I think he saw his job as a way to potentially become more financially self-sufficient.
As the congressman, you're the conduit. Business A, you can't get to business B without coming through me. I'm sitting here going, well, hell, I'm about to hook you up to score a $100 million contract. I need to wet my beak.
Jefferson was appointed to the powerful Ways and Means Committee, as well as the Congressional Africa Trade and Investment Caucus. It didn't take him long to take advantage of his status.
He used his position as a member of Congress to try and create business deals in Africa. And that was really the problem. He traded on his official position to make connections.
Jefferson entered a business relationship with Vernon Jackson, whose company iGate made inexpensive broadband technology.
It was built as the sort of thing that could bring technology to West Africa very cheaply and make it much more accessible to people there, which sounded like a great thing.
But Jefferson's patronage came with a price. In exchange for hooking Jackson up, Jefferson insisted that Jackson use a specific company, A&J Group, to market iGate. The A&J Group was a shell company set up in Jefferson's wife, Andrea's name. From 2001 to 2004, Vernon Jackson paid A&J Group almost $400,000 in cash, ponied up $87,000 worth of travel expenses, and signed over 30 million shares in iGate. In essence, Jefferson was demanding a bribe from Jackson for continued access to his connections in Africa. But then, in 2004, Brett Pfeffer, a former Jefferson staff member, went to work for Lori Modi, a wealthy Virginia businesswoman.
She had this big pool of money that she was looking to invest in different things. And Pfeffer became the glue between the congressman and her.
Jefferson got Modi to invest in iGate, but his demands increased. In early 2005, Modi told the FBI that she believed she was a victim of fraud.
She was at risk of losing her whole investment and felt she was kind of being held up by this congressman. So she went to the FBI, and then she started wearing a wire after that.
On July 30th, 2005, Modi met with Jefferson at a restaurant in Georgetown.
Oh, there he is.
Jefferson had told her that he needed $500,000
I have it in a briefcase.
in order to bribe the vice president of Nigeria and further their iGate venture.
My hands are full if you don't mind grabbing it.
Modi brought the money with her,
Keep it in there if you like.
but the bills were marked
Thank you.
and the restaurant
Not completely clear to me.
was wired.
Do we have a deal with Nigeria?
Yes, we do have a deal with them.
4 days later, on August 3rd, 2005, the FBI raided both Jefferson's home and office. The authorities found $90,000 of the marked money stashed in Jefferson's freezer.
I think it represents an outrageous intrusion in the separation of powers between the executive branch and the congressional branch, and no one has seen this in all the time of the life of the Congress.
You stash cash in your freezer as if that's actually hiding it? It just made no sense whatsoever.
It doesn't help when your co-conspirators plead guilty in court. Brett Pfeffer and Vernon Jackson pled guilty to charges of conspiracy and bribing a public official. Pfeffer got 8 years, Jackson 7 years and 3 months. And in the midst of all this controversy, William Jefferson ran for re-election and won.
When former Representative Jefferson makes a claim that says, the federal government is out to get me, African-American voters are likely to, at least initially, rally around him because they've had that experience of being targeted by their government as well.
But on June 4th, 2007,
and now to a very serious crime allegation. Democratic Congressman
William Jefferson was indicted on 16 counts of corruption by a federal grand jury. The FBI accused him of having pocketed almost $500,000 in bribes and implicated him in 11 separate bribery schemes. In spite of all the evidence against him, audio tape, videotape, witness accounts, and a paper trail, Jefferson pled not guilty.
He basically argued he wasn't necessarily being bribed, that he was just providing a service for constituents to try and get a contract over in another country.
It wasn't so much did he do these things or didn't he do these things, but it was were these things acts of a congressman or just private things that Bill Jefferson did when he wasn't being a congressman.
William Jefferson was found guilty of 11 of the 16 charges and sentenced to 13 years in prison. It was the longest sentence ever handed down to a congressman for bribery.
When we vote someone in the office, We are giving them the legitimate authority to make decisions that affect all of our lives. We're placing our trust in them to make the correct decisions. When we find they violated that trust and they're only interested in enriching themselves, they should be punished to the fullest extent of the law.
I think it's definitely more damaging when African-American politicians commit these kinds of transgressions. Voters that actually turn out to vote who are African-American, and by that I mean older voters, so above the age of 40, many of those generations were raised with the idea that you had to very much be better than whites in order to succeed. You had to be twice as good, 3 times as good, et cetera, et cetera. And I think they apply that principle to African-American elected officials. And they pretty much say, we know that if you screw up, we won't get another black politician for another 20, 30, 40 years.
In 2014, Jesse Jackson Jr. began serving time at Butner Federal Prison Camp in North Carolina. He reportedly is doing a fastidious job, scrubbing toilets, sinks, and showers.
He betrayed the public trust. He did something that was illegal, and it was clear to him and everyone else that it was illegal. He did it anyway.
You begin to believe your own hype. You begin to believe your stuff don't stink. I mean, you begin to think, like a Nixon, you're above the law. And the fact is, he thought he was above the law.
Former Congressman William Jefferson is cooling his heels in the second year of his 13-year sentence in Oakdale, Louisiana.
He felt he was untouchable, and that even after he had run into some legal difficulties, that he had won re-election. And so he had basically felt, well, that kind of justifies behavior. Voters are willing to look past that. That means I must be doing a good job.
If you listen to those tapes,
everybody's excited. Everybody's supportive.
All he cared about were those businesses. It was self-aggrandizing.
You don't mind grabbing it?
It was him benefiting financially from this position that he had.
Ray Nagin was found guilty on 20 counts of federal corruption and was sentenced to 10 years in prison.
He went for things as bribes that most people wouldn't be motivated by. Free trips to Hawaii, private jets, the kind of things that once you get them, they're spent. And that seemed to be what lured him into what ultimately became cash bribes.
3 politicians with promising, rewarding careers all fell prey to the trappings of corruption.
Some politicians, they think that they're bulletproof. They think that they're invincible. They think that no matter what they do, they're not going to get in trouble for it because they're a congressman or they're a mayor or they're a governor. But the law catches up with them or they slip up.
I think all these public corruption cases sort of reduce down to a betrayal of trust.
Thank you for taking the time to go vote, Mary.
A person holds himself out,
young man,
as choosing to serve the public. And then there's an instance where the conduct is inconsistent with that. The conduct is to feather the own nest.
You can keep it in there if you like.
Why did they commit the crime? Why did they betray their constituency? Why tarnish their reputation and destroy?
We all did.
Riddick Bowe lost it.
I wanted to be a father to my kids. And I wanted to be the man my father wasn't.
You were kidnapping your family. You have weapons in the car. He didn't act like the heavyweight champion of the world anymore. He acted like a criminal.
Trevor's a little nuts. He channeled that craziness inside the ring. He certainly didn't know how to control it when he was outside of the ring.
Your Honor, I'm innocent. I'm telling you, I'm innocent. And you all furnish an innocent family man.
The sexual assault on the babysitter obviously is pretty nasty.
Go to jail, get out. Go to jail, get out.
After all I've accomplished already, shine shoes. I was just trying to make money. Trying to make money real fast.
This is a story of crime and punishment. From contenders to offenders on Celebrity Crime Files.
The heavyweight champ of the world is the most prestigious honor you can bestow on a man. You know, he's better known than the President of the United States.
I got on my knees and I prayed and said, Lord, thank you for allowing me to be the heavyweight champ of the world.
The heavyweight boxing champ is the king of the jungle. The baddest dude on the planet.
Boxers come from all walks of life. Most of the guys were all from the ghetto. And the toughness came out, the streetness, the will to survive came out because you're fighting for your life.
There's rules in the ring, there's not rules in the street.
Often with prize fighters, there's such an innate aggression already ingrained in them. It's a natural thing. Their most simple mode of conflict resolution comes with these. Once you step outside of the ring, there's laws, there's rules, there's expectations.
I've seen it too many times over the years, and I've also seen many fighters end up dead.
Like most successful boxers, future heavyweight champion Riddick Bowe started at the bottom, the 12th of his single mother's 13 children.
Riddick Bowe, he was in Brownsville, Brooklyn, which is one of the realest ghettos that God ever created.
I had to fight to survive.
Riddick found an escape in boxing, and as an amateur, he started to progress.
The guy with tremendous athleticism. Fundamentally, he was a very gifted fighter.
Bowe compiled an impressive 104-18 record as an amateur, earning the nickname Big Daddy and qualifying for the 1988 U.S. Olympic team. But the streets that Bowe had escaped were beginning to claim his family.
My sister had just been murdered. My brother was dying of AIDS and things of that nature. But when I thought about my sister and my brother, it gave me energy to fight.
Fueled by tragedy, 20-year-old Riddick Bowe won the silver medal. He returned home and married his high school sweetheart, Judy. And 6 months later, he turned pro.
He felt he was the best in the world. Felt he could beat anybody.
Big Daddy won his first 31 fights, 27 by knockout or TKO. In November of 1992, Bowe took on undefeated Evander Holyfield for the heavyweight championship of the world. In a classic toe-to-toe battle later dubbed the Fight of the Year, Bowe handed Holyfield his first defeat and became the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world.
He beat me, fair and straight.
I kind of felt like I was in a dream. And it took me a couple of days to actually really realize that I was the heavyweight champion of the world.
Riddick Bowe won the title in less than 4 years after winning the silver medal. It's the fastest ascension to the heavyweight title in history, ever. And once he won the title, as we know, things changed.
Less than a year later, after 2 successful title defenses, Bowe granted Holyfield a rematch, but the champ was criticized when he entered the ring 11 pounds heavier than he'd been in their first bout. After the fight was interrupted by the infamous Fan Man, Bowe lost a close decision and his coveted title.
He cried like a baby in the airplane going back home when he lost his title. That changes you, because your world changes overnight from being heavyweight champion of the world to not being champion of the world.
In his next fight, Bo was disqualified when he knocked out Buster Mathis while Mathis was on a knee. After 3 victories, including the rubber match with Holyfield, Bo twice took on Polish heavyweight Andrew Golota, who entered with a reputation as a dirty fighter.
Riddick Bowe didn't want to fight. He just didn't want to fight. He made a lot of money, had trouble getting him going. In camp, I bet you he didn't box 15 good rounds.
Golota lived up to his reputation, earning disqualifications in both bouts for vicious low blows.
Golota starts hitting Bo low and doesn't stop, even though he's clearly winning the fight. Wayne Kelly then has to call the fight. He has to disqualify Andrew Golota. This is after Bo had taken a vicious beating.
Stupid. Those were career destruction punches. It was terrible.
The low blows were painful, but it was Bo's declining defense that proved more destructive. Golota landed numerous headshots, and the repercussions were immediate.
He had acute, immediate brain damage from the second Golota fight, and it irrevocably changed the course of Riddick Bowe's life.
As far as traumatic brain injury is concerned, it can result in behavioral symptoms, personality changes, anger, irritability, in addition to things like memory loss. I used to use the film of him as he spoke earlier with the film of how he spoke after the second Golota fight.
I don't know what to say. But I will say I'm ready. I feel good, and I'm looking forward very much to Thursday night. I was a bit winded, but like always, I always thought I can giggle out. I mean, you gotta look at it like this in this aspect. Golota is somewhat, fresh. He hasn't had as many fights, so therefore he don't get his time. But as soon as fatigue set in a little bit, that's when he started hitting me low.
If you don't put those two things together, it's very easy to discount what happened after the second Golota fight and how bad he spoke and how bad he looked.
After the Golota fight, Bo retired with 40 career wins and only 1 loss. But Riddick Bowe was about to compile a much less enviable record.
Riddick Bowe's career was cut short, and he realized it. And then he started to get desperate, and then that's when things with his family started to fall out.
In December of 1996, just weeks after his costly second victory over Andrew Golota, Riddick Bowe made a bizarre announcement.
Joined the United States Marine Corps. That's y'all big surprise today.
What? Because for a guy that has trouble getting up and doing his road work and not eating McDonald's the day of the fight, you're telling me that you're gonna get up at 5 in the morning and deal with Marines that are trying to discipline you and get you ready for war?
Bowe lasted only 3 days.
I spoke to Judy on the phone, and she's telling me, "Oh, boy, I need you to come home. I love you," whatever the case may be. So I said, "Okay, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go home."
That right there made everybody around Bowe go, whoa, what's going on? This is an erratic, incongruous decision. What is going on with him emotionally? What's going on with him mentally?
Just a few months after his fiasco with the Marines, Bowe was charged with assault on his wife, Judy, and later on his adult nephew, Joey. 3 months later, police were called after Bowe and his sister, Thelma, had a physical altercation. Nobody was arrested.
Bowe was in a position in which he was losing his family. He lost his boxing career. His money was dwindling.
Tired of the abusive, unpredictable behavior patterns she was seeing with Riddick, Judy Bowe left her husband and moved to Cornelius, North Carolina with their children.
Judy was kind of stepping back more and more and more and more, seeing other men. At some point during that process, Riddick Bowe lost it.
Listen, I wanted to be a father to my kids. I wanted to be there for them. I never had that, And I wanted to be the man my father wasn't. When she took the kid and she left, her mother called me and said, "Boy, listen, how's Jack working? Stop being a bitch. Go down and get your wife and kids."
A desperate Riddick Bowe, armed with a buck knife, pepper spray, duct tape, and a flashlight, drove to Cornelius, North Carolina, to literally take his family back.
He picked a couple of the kids up at the bus stop and then went to Mrs. Bowe's house.
And he grabs Judy and the kids. And he tells her he's ready to use these materials that he's brought to her house.
Mr. Bowe forced his way into the house and had her come and get in the car with him and said, "We're going home, you know, we're gonna work things out, things are gonna be better, we're gonna be a family again." They left Cornelius, went north on I-77.
You are kidnapping your family. Your children are in the back seat. You have weapons in the car. These are the actions of an individual that has lost touch with reality.
With his family held hostage in his SUV, the former heavyweight champ drove more than 200 miles up the East Coast.
Once they got into Virginia, she was able to get him to stop at a McDonald's.
She says, okay, the kids are hungry. They stop and give them something to eat. Okay, that sounds a good idea. So we stopped at McDonald's. She said, let me hold your cell phone. I gotta use the bathroom. I'm gonna call my brother Greg to start ready to move it back up to Maryland. I said, okay, I'm gonna happen one night. She go in the bathroom for about 15 minutes. She said, well, I want you to know something. I called the police. Really? Why you call the police? She said, I changed my mind, I want to go back with you.
Bowe was taken to a psychiatric ward for observation and later arrested for abducting his family.
I was a huge fan of his. I loved to watch him box and to see him go from there to what transpired in us was just, you know, it just kind of made you wonder how that can happen.
I don't think he meant to commit the crime of kidnapping.
People say he kidnapped his wife, and whatever terms that you put it in, you make it worse than it really is. You talking about somebody been dating somebody ever since they 13 or 14 years old.
I did something because of love. I never hurt nobody. I guess it's life, that's how it unfolded. But I love everybody and everything, so I think if you know me, or you get to know me, I'm not a violent guy. What I should have been charged with is a broken heart. I haven't seen my kids now, I couldn't tell how many years.
Mr. Bowe pled guilty to interstate domestic violence. That was an agreement that was reached with his representatives and him and the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office.
The authorities called me and told me I had to come to North Carolina to appear in court. I did that. You're looking at either 22 years or you can cop out to this plea for 1.5 years. Man, I jumped in that 1.5 years so fast, it made your head. That 1.5 years. He didn't even get finished saying it. 1.5 years, let me get that. At this point, I'm glad this is behind me. I can, move on and be better because of it, Hopefully I can get myself together and I look for something positive in the future.
In an effort to reduce his sentence further, Bowe's defense team, which included Johnny Cochran, used the video of Bowe's badly slurred speech after the Galata fight as evidence Bowe had suffered brain damage.
If you look at the stages of CTE or chronic traumatic encephalopathy, there's different stages of it, and one of those stages involves behavioral changes, and those behavioral changes can result in violent outbursts, aggressive behavior, personality changes.
I think the judge looked at the case in front of him and saw that there was some psychological elements.
With the stipulation that Bowe never fight again, the judge shortened his sentence to 30 days, surmising that Bowe's brain damage had indeed played a part in the crimes he committed.
So the judge did buy it, but gave himself a back door. So you're not going to use this defense and then go fight Evander Holyfield for $20 million. You're saying that boxing is the reason you have brain damage, and that subsequently that brain damage led you to commit nefarious acts. If that's the case, you can't box.
Riddick Bowe's life was falling apart. He needed stability. Judy filed for divorce, and 2 years later, Bowe married Terry Blackney. But in 2001, after a domestic dispute got ugly, Bo was arrested for assault on Terry, which resulted in her having cuts on her knees and her elbows. Because Bo was on probation, he was sent to prison for 17 months.
I longed for my wife. I wanted to be with my wife. And I knew that when I came home, we were gonna have a baby. I just couldn't wait for the day to come where I can go home and just be with her. I was under the impression that when I came out, I would resume my boxing career. But then people started saying, oh, well, they say you got brain damage, you got this, you got that.
I think his post-incarceration campaign towards, winning the heavyweight title again and insisting on fighting after he had used pugilistic dementia as his defense was delusion and the yearning to reclaim his respect.
Life after boxing is never easy for a fighter. In 2005, after earning more than $50 million in his career, 38-year-old Riddick Bowe filed for bankruptcy.
His boxing career's over. He's a laughingstock, of the boxing community. His money's going out of the window like crazy.
Bowe fought once in 2008, earning $30,000. A year later, he was selling his autograph at a New Jersey flea market for $65. He told a reporter, "I'm not perfect, but I'm not the worst either. God brought me this far, he's not done with me yet." Well, for boxers.
Most people that box, most people that fight, they came from a hard life, a hard upbringing.
Fighters come from disenfranchised communities. Usually they come from broken families, and then they continue down this road, and it leads them to the squared circle.
Henry Tillman grew up in the West Coast version of Brownsville, South Central Los Angeles.
South LA back then, it was like a hard little small city, Pretty much the gangs were surrounding that little circle.
Crime was higher than it is now. Homicides, a lot of robberies, a lot of theft.
But I've been told by people that were close to the situation that Henry Tillman always had a disposition to crime.
I wound up in California Youth Authority, YTS, Youth Training School, with a 5-year bid for armed robbery with a gun. I was over at somebody's house who was shooting dice, and I caught him with the loaded dice and put a gun on me. So I just grabbed him and the gun. And we both fell, and I wound up with the gun. I just hit him with it and ran. And that's the robbery. They don't explain on the record.
While in the custody of the state, Tillman was introduced to boxing by Mercer Smitty Smith. Tall and strong, Tillman showed immediate talent.
After 6 months later, I was beating everybody up in the institution. They would bring the guys from the street that would win the tournaments, and I would box them and beat them.
Once home from his bid, 23-year-old Tillman's rise in the amateur ranks was swift. In 1983, with just a dozen fights under his belt, he earned a silver medal in the heavyweight division at the prestigious Pan Am Games. The light heavyweight silver medalist was a future rival, Evander Holyfield.
He was like me, but just from Atlanta. Nobody knew him, unknown. And so me and Holyfield kind of gravitated to each other.
Tillman's one of them nice guys, but Tillman's one of them guys that he ain't gonna let you push over.
A year later, Tillman used his reach and lightning-fast jab to defeat Mike Tyson twice and earn a spot on the 1984 Olympic boxing team.
One thing I did see was that Mike didn't know how to cut the ring off. He'd follow you. And so my trainer, Mercer Smith, said, you just make circles. And when you make that circle, he turned to come after you, you stop real quick and hit him and keep moving again.
Henry just boxed him. Stuck the jab in his face, moved around him, gave him angles, and basically gave him a boxing lesson.
At the Olympic Games, in front of friends and family, just a few miles from the hard streets where he'd found trouble as a teen, 24-year-old Henry Tillman captured a gold medal.
And just being in my own backyard, that was really special because both my parents was able to come to every bout and watch me, and then watch me win the gold medal. It was basically like a Cinderella dream come true.
He was one of the more decorated amateurs that U.S. boxing has ever seen. He was fantastic. He was good looking. He was tall. So the general thought was, coming out of that Olympics, that he was going to do some serious damage.
3 months after the Olympics, Tillman turned pro, winning his first 10 fights, 7 by knockout or TKO.
Everybody was proud and everybody was happy for him. You know, a chance to make a lot of money and be a big-time millionaire and all that.
After winning 4 of his next 5 fights, Tillman took on his friend and former Olympic teammate Evander Holyfield for the WBA cruiserweight title.
I didn't want to fight Henry, but I understand what the art of the game. The art of the game is that, you know what, the 2 best people fight each other. And I knew that it was going to be a tough fight for me.
Holyfield TKO'd his homeboy in the 7th round. It would be the last world title fight of Tillman's career.
Some guys, just because you have amateur success, doesn't always mean it'll translate into the pro game.
In 1990, at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, Tillman appeared in the spotlight one final time as the opponent for Mike Tyson, who 4 months earlier had lost his heavyweight crown to Buster Douglas.
Yeah, I thought I was going to win. I'm never taking a fight where I didn't think I could win.
Tillman didn't make it out of the first round.
He just caught me with a good shot, you know, high on the top of the temple, and just caught me, you know, and I went down.
So while Tillman had the edge in the amateurs, Mike had the advantage in the pros.
Unable to get past the top heavyweights, Tillman hung up his gloves 2 years later with a record of 25-6.
Yeah, he made some money, you know, but did he make the big money like Mike Tyson did or Evander Holyfield? You know, millions of dollars, big money. No, he didn't.
It wouldn't take long for Henry Tillman to run out of money. And when he did, he started spending money he didn't have.
I didn't care about living, and I didn't care about nobody else living. I was in the street like just a regular old thug.
Go to jail, get out, go to jail, get out. I was like, yo, bro, what are you doing, man? You're tarnishing that gold medal.
You know, I didn't care. Hollywood Park, everything that I did bad, not blame, put no blame, it was still me.
Henry Tillman was sentenced to 3 years in prison.
I didn't care about living. I didn't care about nobody else living. I was in the street like just a regular old thug.
Before beginning his sentence, Tillman allegedly fired a .38 caliber revolver at 2 men sitting in a car parked outside the Townhouse, a popular South Central night spot.
Henry Tillman was obviously well connected with the street. He was big, strong, scary, and capable.
The driver recovered, but the passenger, shot in the eye, died from a stroke days later. Tillman spent more than 4 years in jail awaiting trial for attempted murder.
It was really, really tough, you know, because I did a total of 53 months in total solitary confinement. You just get into your own head. You have to be strong.
Ultimately, Tillman's lawyer convinced him to accept a plea bargain.
He said, well, Henry, you can plead no contest, protect, you know, your innocence as best you can, and walk around on the street in a few months, pleading your case how innocent you are. Or you can not plead no contest, and possibly this thing can go the other way, and you walk around prison for 25 years of life. You know, you say, don't give the system another chance to throw the dart at you.
Tillman was granted time served for the years he'd spent in jail awaiting trial, and after 18 months was set free, but it didn't last long.
Well, you know, it's just like in any crime. You're looking for something that you don't have to work to get.
When he was hustling the streets, I used to always tell him, why are you hustling so much, Henry?
In January of 2004, a woman attempted to cash a counterfeit check at a Wells Fargo bank. Police pulled over her getaway car and apprehended Tillman and 4 associates. In the car, they discovered several fake IDs, credit cards, and checks in his possession.
After all I've accomplished already, shine shoes, and so I was just trying to just make money, that's all. Trying to make money real fast.
I've known fighters that if they're surrounded by con men and jerk-offs, they bring the fighter back to a street mentality, and then the fighter is told he can do whatever he wants.
You're getting small money here, now you're getting more money, now you're getting straight cash money, and so you think it'll last forever.
Tillman pleaded guilty to identity theft and was sentenced to 37 months in state prison.
I went to visit him, and I was like, yo, bro, what are you doing, man? You're tarnishing that gold medal. You know, that gold medal's going from gold to bronze.
Henry Tillman was released in 2008 at age 48. But compared to former heavyweight world champ Trevor Berbick, Tillman got off easy.
I just kind of, to be honest with you, knew that it wouldn't end good for Trevor Berbick.
Jamaican-born and raised Trevor Berbick started boxing late at the age of 19. With almost no ring experience, Berbick won bronze at the 1975 Pan Am Games.
Trevor Berbick was a fine fighter. He wasn't that talented, but he was very, very tough.
Trevor's a little nuts, you know, and I think he channeled that craziness inside the ring, and it did him some good then as a prize fighter.
Berbick represented Jamaica at the '76 Olympic Games in Montreal, then won 18 of his first 20 pro fights, earning a shot at Larry Holmes' WBC heavyweight belt. He lost a lopsided decision, but 8 months later, the 27-year-old Berbick was in the ring again against 39-year-old faded former champion Muhammad Ali.
The last man to fight Muhammad Ali, in which easily is the most disgraceful promotion in boxing history. Ali should not have been fighting.
In Ali's final fight, Berbick destroyed him. After winning 10 of his next 12 fights, Berbick got a second title shot, and this time he made the most of it, taking out Pinklin Thomas to be crowned the WBC heavyweight champion of the world.
Berbick had surprising success in the heavyweight division.
It was just his unfortunate time frame that he became champion just when Mike Tyson was ready to challenge for the championship.
On November 27, 1986, Berbick made his first title defense against 20-year-old phenom Mike Tyson. But before the fight, he began exhibiting strange behavior, complaining that poison gas was being pumped into his hotel room.
I interviewed Trevor a bunch of times, been around him, know a lot of stories, heard a lot of things. Wouldn't surprise me if Trevor Berbick had some type of mental illness.
Berbick also claimed that his new trainer, the legendary Angelo Dundee, had hypnotized him and given him an injection before the fight that made him lose his balance. Injection or not, Tyson had no problem knocking Berbick off his feet.
He didn't last long. But he got a good payday, and it worked for one fight, and it was over.
I just felt that he had issues upstairs that needed to be dealt with.
He was way more dangerous outside of the ring than he was in it.
In March of 1990, Berbick was arrested for threatening a man with a knife who he believed had been sleeping with his wife, Nadine. 7 months later, Nadine left him and filed for divorce, claiming abuse.
I think it demonstrates that he was an impulsive individual. I think it demonstrates that he was a little antisocial.
Shortly after he was released on bail, Berbick and Larry Holmes got into a street fight when Berbick accused Holmes of trying to break up his marriage.
Allow him to kick me!
Him and Larry get into a disagreement. Larry loses his mind. Trevor Berbick was really good at getting under people's skin. That's what he was really good at.
Then it got real. Berbick was arrested for raping his children's babysitter. At trial, she said,
I gave him the address to come bring me my money. He knocked on the door. I let him in. Then he said, come give me a hug. I said no. I tried to leave, but the man wouldn't let me.
I think he might have just felt comfortable with this and felt like there wouldn't be any repercussions from this.
Then we start struggling. I was screaming. I told him if he did, I was going to call the police. He said, go ahead. Nobody's going to believe you. I'm Trevor Burbick.
I've heard things about him, some good, some bad, some I wouldn't repeat. A lot of guys can't make that transition from being a superstar or a fighter to becoming just a guy again.
He was acting like this was some kind of game for him. He was actually having fun terrorizing me in that apartment.
What you get is you get kind of the spoiled brat syndrome, in which I can do whatever I want because I can pay the money for the lawyers. The judge probably knows who I am. Essentially, it's a sense of entitlement that leads to these nasty out-of-ring incidents that we're profiling so closely.
Burbick was convicted of rape and assault, receiving a 4-year sentence. In court, he turned belligerent.
Your Honor, I'm innocent. I'm telling you, court, I'm innocent. And you all furnish an innocent family man. I might kill you or something, and then please go and kill you or something.
The judge ordered a psychological evaluation, and he was diagnosed with delusions of grandeur.
There again, you know, a guy who has issues upstairs, who's in boxing, and getting hit in the head. And then after the game, what does he do?
Some of the guys can't get rid of that thug image. They think they have to be this big, badass thug, you know, in the ring and out of the ring.
Burbick served 15 months of the rape sentence and was able to resume his boxing career. But when a blood clot was found in Burbick's brain, he was forced to retire. Shortly afterwards, he violated his parole and was deported back to Jamaica.
So what he's thinking is, I'm gone, I've lost my wife, I'm not gonna see my children, I have to go back to Jamaica, I can't really earn money there, not like I can here in America. It must have been a devastating judgment.
In 2002, the troubled Burbick slipped back into the United States to see his children, but got arrested and sent back to Jamaica a second time.
The sexual assault on the babysitter obviously is pretty nasty.
Your first home, see.
And friend Kenton Gordon lurked in the shadows and watched Trevor's every move. Burbick, now an ordained minister who called himself the Soldier of the Cross, ended up in a remote churchyard. Harold and Kenton Gordon approached the tipsy Trevor Burbick in the churchyard, wielding a 2-inch thick pipe, and they beat him to death.
He was bludgeoned to death. Witnesses say that he had been involved in a land dispute and that that's what maybe led to his murder. I think the most tragic aspect of the case is that it was his own family member that killed him. It was his flesh and his blood in his own country, Jamaica. It's bone-chilling. It calls into question the very basic composition of human decency.
Burbick's legacy is probably that he fought Ali and he fought Mike Tyson. But unfortunately, because he wasn't a star, because he wasn't a figure in boxing that was a formidable figure, it'll be lost in history.
Riddick Bowe's legacy is yet to be determined, but he knows how he'd like to be remembered.
Great guy, great fighter, very determined, had a lot of heart. And one day, somebody gonna say, you know what? I wanna be just like him. And they may start boxing.
Bowe returned to the ring in June of 2013 at age 45 for a Muay Thai fight in Thailand. He was knocked down 5 times en route to a second-round TKO loss.
He was talking about being the heavyweight champion of the world in 2010 when he was 70, 80 pounds overweight and clearly had acute brain damage.
All right, let's go. Good work.
Henry Tillman is faring much better since his incarceration.
Thank Jab, then drop down to the bottom. You know what I'm saying? Make him think you're doing something else. You know you're going in for the body shot.
In July of 2013, he opened the Henry Tillman Championship Boxing Club in Carson, California.
I'm helping somebody stay out of trouble or possibly getting hurt or hurt somebody. And, you know, and I like when I see the fighters just hang around the gym all day. And that's a good feeling to see they're safe.
One of the great things for Henry is that he's in an environment now of helping other young fighters come up. I see a sincerity in him, and I feel like he's on a really good path.
Henry Tillman is a wonder for me. He is out there in the community. He is alive. He's alert. He's such a dynamo. A lot of things are taken away from him, time, money, etc., but he's giving back.
Tillman wasn't the best fighter, but he probably gonna be the best trainer and the best coach. I allowed Tillman to work with my son one time, my son Evan, and Tillman was able to get him to do all this stuff I was trying to get them to do, and in one setting, he got them to do all this.
The things that he went through, you know, he's always telling me that too, and it is an inspiration, you know, to do more, that I could be whatever I want to be, you know. If I put my time in it, you know, it'll pay off.
I just wish there was some kind of way you can help fighters become more successful after boxing when they're done, because all that work and all that risk and wind up with where you started from with nothing. You know, that's what makes it boxing sad, and people look at it as bad, but boxing for some of us was a way out, was the last boat, you know, to get out.
Outside a hot Atlanta nightclub, a shocking confrontation.
We got a bunch of shots fired over here. Coming to this right now.
All hell broke loose.
A new school detective who leaves no stone unturned.
I keep my mind open to everything, because everything's a possibility.
I saw everything. A puzzling crime scene.
I wanted to find out what happened to this young man.
Mixed with conflicting stories.
That dude had a gun.
He wasn't telling the whole truth.
And a complex digital trail.
There they are.
Adds up.
You could see the killer on social media.
To one wild murder mystery.
What's the motive here?
This was truly senseless and unnecessary.
We spent our careers solving Atlanta's most puzzling homicides.
But there are other investigators just like us.
With the passion and skills needed to solve the most unbelievably challenging murders.
These are their cases.
We're rolling down Peachtree Street, which is probably one of the most well-known roads in Atlanta.
Now we're in Buckhead, one of the more affluent areas of the city. Although it's the enclave of the wealthy and the rich, it doesn't mean you're not going to be a victim of crime.
It has high mortgages and high-priced stores, but it also has its share of the dark side. And on this very block back in 2019, shots rang out in the darkness, and it turned out to be a deadly situation.
Unit. 3177 Peachtree Road, shots fired. We got a bunch of shots fired over here. Coming to the units right now. Coming to the unit. I'll be signal fence. Wait up.
It was February 9th, 2019. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and my phone rings. That's definitely the Atlanta Police Department calling me, letting me know that I need to come out and respond to a homicide.
Tracy Lewis is the on-call detective assigned to the case.
What do we have?
A shooting.
He gives me the address, and he tells me that the victim had been transported to Grady Hospital and has succumbed to his injuries.
All right, I'm on my way.
You know that you have to hurry up and get out there as soon as possible, but it's still the, what am I about to walk into? That's coming into your psyche, like, oh my God, what is this?
Tracy has an unrelenting drive that is traced back to her roots.
I'm from Atlanta. I grew up in an upper middle class home, but we were victims of crime. When I was 19 years old, I had my boyfriend at the time. He was murdered. And then as I became a little bit older, my cousin was murdered. And these crimes were unsolved. So I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to become a police officer.
We worked with Tracy back in the day.
I started my career with the Atlanta Police Department in July the 5th of 2000.
Tracy was our girl from the beginning. For the first time we met her out there, we knew it was going to stick. She was homicide.
Tracy Lewis was a pit bull when it comes to getting information, but in a sense that she had a soft side that she would make that person want to talk to her. Shortly after 5 a.m., Tracy arrives on scene.
The Hole in the Wall Club where this incident took place, it is a small club. This was my first time ever responding to a call at this location.
Tracy's got a million things she's got to process in her brain.
I'm looking at what I have. The only story that it's telling me is what I already know. Someone was shot and killed, and that's really about it. It doesn't give me anything to say what the motive was.
You first on scene?
Yeah, right when it happened. I heard pop, 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 pop.
He was actually working a traffic accident outside the club on Peachtree Street.
Tracy had the luck of the Irish. He hears gunfire, and this joker runs towards the gunfire while he's working the wreck in the middle of the road.
He did not see the shooting. He heard the shots, and he said it was about maybe 4 to 5 shots that he heard.
Did you see the suspect?
No, only a victim when I got her. Black male.
He was laying on the ground and he was unresponsive.
The victim was rushed to Grady Hospital, where he was pronounced dead a short time later.
Is my victim ID'd?
No, not yet. We did find some 9mm shell casings.
Anybody talking who saw the shooting?
Yeah, a couple guys. I'll go grab them for you.
You want tons of witnesses, good or bad, because you're trying to paint what happened in this parking lot. One of the best things that happened on this early morning crime scene is Tracy's got 2 viable witnesses.
I'm Detective Lewis. I need to talk to you separately.
I interviewed them separately because that's what we do. We don't want them to start taking stories from each other and, mixing their stories up. These male witnesses, they were actually friends of my victim.
What's his name?
Scoop. These witnesses didn't know his full government name. That's not unusual. In the culture that we're in today, the young people, that's what they go by. Our victim's name was Scoop, and that's what they knew him by.
Tell me what happened.
Well, we were in a parking lot.
They were speaking with some young ladies.
Car pulled alongside of Scoop, and then they just started jawing at each other.
He was having words with the person on the passenger side. And then they said that they saw the passenger shoot the victim and then start shooting out the front windshield of the car. I was a little confused.
He shot out the driver's side too?
Uh-huh.
So that lets me know that he's shooting at someone else because my victim did not move from the side of the car. There's someone else that this person is shooting at. I'd have to find out who that is and why.
What happened next?
They just took off.
The driver of that vehicle started ramming cars trying to get out of the traffic jam.
You know the make and model of the car?
Yeah.
They described the vehicle as being a red Nissan Altima with the Georgia tag, and they said it possibly had the letter R in it.
That's good luck. And it's got damage because it tagged a bunch of cars leaving the parking lot, trying to make that escape.
Did you see the shooter?
Yeah.
They described him as being a short, light-skinned male.
And the driver was dark-skinned with a mini afro and medium build.
Saw him in the club earlier. They were in there causing a scene.
They had never seen them before, so they weren't regulars. They were on the stage dancing, and the shooter, he was fanning money.
I don't even know why they went after school.
I think I have an idea that my victim was the intended target.
Got some good news for you. Club's manager's gonna send you the surveillance tape from inside the nightclub.
Great.
She's cooking with gas right now.
There's something else.
There's another witness that wants to speak. He is one of the security officers that works at the club. He wasn't on the scene when I arrived because he actually followed EMS down to the hospital and was down there when the victim succumbed to his injuries.
You want to come back to my office?
Sure.
Let's roll.
We just needed to leave the scene at that point, and let's go someplace warm and we can talk. He seemed like he had a lot to tell me. I kind of felt like there's more of a connection between him and the victim versus the other two gentlemen.
You know the victim?
Uh-huh. He was a regular at the club.
My assumption was correct. He knows him as Scoob. He doesn't know his true government name.
What else can you tell me about last night?
I saw everything.
Tracy's excited. Her whole body language is saying this thing's about to come to a close.